Well, good afternoon and welcome to another episode with your girl, Audrey Codner from Math by Audrey. So, we're going to continue our series that we're doing here to work on those basic skill sets so you can actually improve not only in the algebra course that you're currently in, maybe college algebra, algebra 2, algebra 1, but also for those that are taking the GED, the ASVAB, the Accuplacer, TEAS test, HESI test, any test that has algebra in it. So what we're actually going to be working on is a combination of these particular operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So as we build up our foundation, then we can actually really take on the algebra. A lot of us are trying to understand the algebra and our foundations is not that strong. So this is why I come on here to break down concepts. And the most frequent concept that a lot of people generally miss is order of operations. So, what we're talking about order of operations, we are looking at the famous phrase PEMDAS, okay? Or if you're international students, it's BODMAS, BODMAS. But what we do is a process of how you can solve or simplify your expressions or equations. So what it means is the P is your parentheses, the E is the exponents, D or M and D is multiplication or division, and the AS is addition or subtraction. But this is the part that a lot of people miss from left to right. That's what we need to do with multiplying and dividing. So a lot of people think that, oh, okay, multiplication is the first thing that you do. No, it all depends on what's happening from left to right. So taking a look at our first example, let's start off simple and then build ourselves up. So we have 18 minus 4 times 3. Remember, multiplication can be shown as a parentheses or as a dot, but we try as you go into algebra not to use x for representing multiplication. Because x, once you get into algebra, is going to be an unknown variable. So it can represent any number to make that equation or expression true. So we look inside the parentheses, there's only a number, so we don't have anything to deal with it. We don't have any exponents because it's not being raised by anything. And now we're looking at either multiplication or division from left to right. Well, as you can see, we have our multiplication. So now this minus sign is now acting as a negative for the 4. So this actually reads negative 4 times 3. And when the signs are opposite, one's negative and one's positive, your result will always be a negative number. Now we do 4 times 3, which gives me 12. So what do we do with the 18? That just comes on down. Okay, so now we have 18 minus 12. So 18 minus 12, that gives me 6, because the only operation we had left was the subtraction. So we can go ahead and do that. So this is your answer for this expression, right? It just kind of gives you a process, because I know there are some people still to this day is saying 18 minus 4 will gives me 14, and then you take that 14 and multiply by 3. And I'm going to tell you that answer is going to be shown in your multiple choice solutions. So don't forget, when you see an expression, when there's no equal sign, you always want to think of PEMDAS. So let's take another example. And I'm going to put it next to example 1 so we can use it as comparison. So this time we have 5 plus 8 minus 3, and we're going to square it. So when you go, hello, Lisa, welcome in. So what we're going to do is we're taking a look. We have 5 plus 8 minus 5 squared. So what's happening is, first thing, we're looking at the parentheses. As some internationals, it will be the brackets, okay, the BODMAS. So actually, let me put that down here so I can make sure I'm representing as many people as I can. So the B for the international means brackets or parentheses, which is happening here. So we have 8 minus 3, so that gives us 5. So I bring down my 5, bring down my plus, bring down my square, but in its place is going to be for my Dolly Parton painting. So now we took care of the parentheses. Now let's see if we have any exponents, which we do. So we're not adding the 5 and the 5 because addition is way down the line. We have to take care of our exponents or our other expressions, okay? So the only thing that is being raised to the second power is just this 5. And 5 to the second power is not 10, okay? It means that this exponent is telling this base how many times we need to multiply itself. So we need to multiply that base of 5 2 times, okay? Notice this 2 is a lot smaller than the 5. So even just with the size difference, this is telling the base how many times you're multiplying itself, which gives me 25. All right? Then we bring down the plus sign, as well as we bring down the 5. So now what's left is 5 plus 25, which gives me an answer of 30. Okay? Notice how we're taking it step by step. Okay? It's almost like we're starting broad and we're coming down narrow. We started broad and we're funneling down to our only digit. So let's kind of take this up just a little bit. Okay? So let's see if I can come here. And I'm going to see if I can get it to about right here. So for example, number 3. So let's up the ante just a little bit. But all we have to do is don't look at it as one big, huge problem, because next thing you know, you're going to get overwhelmed. You want to take these questions step by step. Okay. So for example, number 3, we have 24 divided by 4 times 2 plus 3 squared minus 5. So if we're looking at the order of operation, first thing we need to do is inside the parentheses. So the inside of the parentheses, all we have is a single digit, so we don't have to worry too much. Then we're taking care of our exponent. So the only thing that's being raised to the exponent is this 3 squared. Now, as I go through these and you feel like, oh, Audrey, I want to put a comment in. Put a comment in. Totally fine. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're understanding these concepts. So you're not bothering me. If you want to put a comment in, you're like, I think I know what the answer is. I think what the next step is. Go ahead and put it inside the comments. So the only thing that's being raised to an exponent is this 3. So the 3 being raised to the second power is basically saying 3 times 3. Okay, so the exponent is telling the base how many times it's multiplying the base to itself. So that gives us 9. Now, as we get used to everything, we can do some combos. Okay, as we get used to everything, we can go ahead and do some combos, skip some steps. But right now, I want to walk you through it step by step. All right. So now we took care of the exponent. We already took care of the parenthesis. Now, this is the part that gets everyone. We need to do multiplication or division from left to right. I know for a fact a lot of people multiplied the 4 and the 2 right away. They're just like, let me get rid of this parenthesis and multiply 4 and 2. I get 8. Then I do 24 divided by 8 gives me 3, and then I can continue on with the process. No, this is why I say it gets people right away. So if we're trying to do multiplication or division from left to right, the first thing that I come across is my division. So even though it says MD, it really means multiplication or division. Okay, whatever is going to happen first from left to right. So we actually have to do 24 divided by 4. And that gives me an answer of 6. Okay. And you wonder why. You're like, well, this is how I was taught. But every time you take it on the test, you always get it wrong, right? Let's fix it together, guys, because we can do this. Okay. So now bring everything down. Again, from left to right, we're still in that multiplication or division mode. Well, we definitely have multiplication. So let's combine that. So 6 times 2, that gives me 12. And then we can bring everything else down. The plus 9 and the minus 5. Okay? I know it's going to be tempting just to do, let me do 9 minus 5. You probably could. But let's keep going with the whole left to right. Now we took care of multiplying and dividing. So we have addition or subtraction. So we're either going to add or subtract from left to right. So that means we're going to take Dolly Parton pen. Okay. 12 plus 9, that gives us 21. Bring down the minus 5. And now we have 21 minus 5. That gives us 16. Now, would you get the same answer if you did 9 minus 5 to give me 4 and add to the 12 to get my 16? Yes, you would. But I want to make sure that we're following that whole process of elimination. So you go wide and notice how we funnel down to an answer. Okay? So the reason why you have these orders is just like if you're putting an outfit together. All right? It's no longer the 90s, even though the 90s fashions are starting to come back. We are no longer putting our bras outside of our clothing. Okay? Give it a couple weeks. You might see the, the fancy schmancy bra like, Selena or Madonna had back in the day. But for right now, we want to work in that particular order so we can get our answer. All right? So we have a few more. We're halfway there. If you have any questions, go ahead and put in the chat. If you are watching the replay, if you can put in hashtag replay, that'll be awesome. And now that I have my YouTube channel already organized with playlists, you can actually do some more extra practice or take a look at more lives looking at my order of operations playlist. Okay, all you have to do is just go to the beginning of my profile and you'll actually see the playlist on the very top. All right. All right, let's take another look at another example. All right, so we're going to go with example number 4. Now with example number 4, we have 3 with the bracket, so that's times 15 minus 2 plus 4 squared divided by 9. Close my bracket. Okay. So you always want to, I'm going to bring it down here so we can see it. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally from left to right. Okay. So we have 3 times, that's what brackets mean, just in case those in the US, because we don't use brackets too often. So you have 3 times 15 minus the sum of 2 and 4 raised to the second power divided by 9. Now, we're going to do what's inside the parenthesis first. So I'm going to rewrite just until we start feeling really comfortable with what's going on. So since we're going to do what's inside the parenthesis, 2 plus 4, that gives me 6. So that means we took care of our parenthesis. Boom, that's done. Now we have E for our exponent. So we have what's being raised to the second power. It's not the difference of 15 and 6. It's just the 6. So we're looking at, let's bring everything down. We have 3. We have our bracket. 15 minus our 6 squared. And our 6 squared is 36. Okay. And it's not a negative 6 because this minus sign, which does act as a negative for this previous number, it's not inside. We did not, when we added the 2 and the 4, we did not get a negative 6. We got a positive 6. So you're only squaring the 6. That's where the 36 came from. Then we're bringing down our division of 9. Okay, and even though we took care of our parenthesis, we're still inside of a bracket. So we're still doing the work that's inside of here. Now, exponent, we're done. But inside of this bracket, we're either going to do multiplication or division, whichever comes first, from left to right. I know for certain some people did 15 minus 36. Okay, I know someone got a 21 in here, a negative 21 in fact. But we are not doing addition or subtraction prior to multiplication or division. So what we're combining is this negative 36 divided by 9. Notice how I said that. It's not a minus 36. Now that I'm combining it with another number, this minus sign is acting as a negative for the 36. So a negative divided by a positive, that will give me a negative. And then 36 divided by 9 would give me 4. So everything else is coming on down. So here's my 15. Okay, here's my bracket. And here's my 3. So we're still handling things with inside this bracket. So that means we are going to bring down our 3, but inside the bracket, we have 15 minus 4. That gives me 11. Brackets means multiplication. Okay. The reason why we didn't distribute this 3 to everything is we want to respect what's going on inside of this bracket first. And once we get that, then we're going to handle this multiplication of 3 on the outside. So when you're doing anything inside the parentheses, inside the brackets, settle that first before you deal with anything outside of it. So 3 times 11, that gives me 33. Okay. So as you're doing things, you're simplifying and you're narrowing or funnelling down to your answer. Okay. So taking it step by step, taking it step by step. So if you like some of these, I still got 2 more. But if you like any of these and just want to kind of show just as a little recap, and you just need some more attention with this, I have my latest books called Algebra at Your Pace, where anyone that's dealing with algebra, okay, GED, ASVAB, Accuplacer, TEAS test, or just algebra as a review. Make sure you guys get all this down in your notes. I have Algebra at Your Pace, which is a workbook setting but it has guided notes. Let me explain real quick. So with algebra at your pace, okay, this one's particular with linear equations. So once you open it up, it's going to give you a QR code. When you scan this QR code, it's going to open up to a whole playlist of instructional videos to help you break down these concepts. Okay, it gives you a place for you to write your notes. It gives you a place to write down the practice problems that you see in the video, as well as the exit ticket. Okay, so it's the same format as my notebook here. But then also you get extra practice problems. So for this one in particular, we're dealing with some graphing. And then once you finish with the graph, then you'll get the answer on the very back. Okay, just so you can check your work. So you don't have to go all the way to the back of the book. And as you can see, we have several different topics. We talk about slope algebraically, graphically. We talk about parallel and perpendicular lines and their slopes. Okay, we talk about going from standard to slope-intercept form, as well as determining what is the slope-intercept form, and then also your point slope. But at the end of everything, you get like a chapter quiz. And of course, the answer key comes with that, as well as, it gives you like a reference pages. So if you're not good with your integers, here's your reference pages. And it's also color coded. So you'll be able to kind of guide yourself through it. Hey, this looks familiar. Okay, with the order of operations and also your properties of exponents. So it's visually pleasing, but at the same time, you're able to understand and get that reminder that you need in order to get things done. So this one is just particular for this book. Your first book will always go back to integers, decimals, fractions. It starts from the very beginning. Okay, so if you're interested in that, you can message me, or you can just go ahead and click the link that is in my profile. That's my Stan Store Math by Audrey. And you can see all the free gifts in there, as well as all the books that I have, especially the ebooks that I have that's on sale. So, and I have all kinds of goodies in there. Okay, so just to help you get from point A to point B, because I want you to be successful. All right, so the last two, we're going to step it up just a little bit more. Let's see. And she's like, oh, goodness, there's a fraction bar. Okay, now this is the part where people start to freak out. Guys, fraction is just another way of saying division. Okay, so now for number 5, we have the absolute value of negative 12 plus 2 raised to the third power times 3 over or divide by the difference of 5 and 2 raised to the second power plus 1. So my suggestion when you're tackling problems like this, instead of looking at it as one big problem, you're going to do what's called grouping, focusing on one concept or your numerator or the denominator at one time. So we're going to be doing PEMDAS not necessarily once, but twice. So let's focus on the numerator. So we have the absolute value of negative 12 plus 2 raised to the third power times 3. So if we take a look, the absolute values are always positive. Because if I take a look, I'm just going to use this paper for a second. If I had a number line, so here's 0, here's 12, here's negative 12. So if I lived here at 0, and I have a friend that's 12 blocks away, and I have another friend that's 12 blocks away from my house, but in the opposite direction. So if I wanted to go from my house to their house, I know I have to walk 12 blocks. And to go from my house to my other friend's house, even though it's in the opposite direction, I still have to walk 12 blocks. So if you notice that the absolute value of 12, that's going to still equal 12. And the absolute value of negative 12, that's still going to equal 12 because it all depends on the distance away from 0. Okay, so if I said 3 and negative 3, absolute value of positive 3 is 3, and the absolute value of negative 3 is also 3. Okay, so now that I wrote on this side, let's flip. So that means the absolute value of negative 12 is just going to be 12. Okay, then I'm going to bring everything down. So parentheses, brackets, absolute values, you are doing first. Okay, so now here, and I'm probably going to use this side to calculate. So for here, I want to simplify. I'm just going to bring it down because I'm running out of room. So we have our 12. We have our plus, but our next thing is our exponents. Okay, so we're not multiplying 3 and 3. I've actually seen that before. No, we're dealing with what is being raised to the third power. That's the 2. So 2 to the third power, or 2 cubed, is the same as saying 2 times 2 times 2. The exponent's job is to tell the base how many times it's going to multiply itself. So 2 times 2 gives me 4, and 4 times 2 gives me 8. Let me bring down the times 3. Okay, now multiplication or division. We have multiplication. Positive 8 times a positive 3. That gives me a positive 24. Bring down our 12. All right. And now we got our 12 plus 24. That gives us a 36. So this is saying that my numerator is 36. So now we're going to pause on that and work on the denominator. So the denominator, we have 5 minus 2 squared plus 1. So if we do inside the parentheses first, this will give us a 3. That's being squared plus 1. Now 3 squared, that gives us 9. And 9 plus 1 gives us 10. So this 10, that's going to be your denominator. So now let's put it together. Your numerator is 36. Let me use different colors so we can get it all together. The numerator is 36. The denominator is 10. And you will probably say, oh no, Audrey, I did something wrong. No, you didn't do anything wrong. Fractions are numbers too. Okay? But if you look at your answer choices and you don't see any decimals or fractions, hey, there we go. Let's see what we did to make the correction. But let's take a look. Let's practice on reducing fractions. I know you don't like fractions, but it's okay. So 36 divided by 10. They both end in even numbers. So we got an even number. So what number is factors of 36 and 10? Well, that's 2. So what I do to reduce a fraction, I take what they have in common in factor form, and I reduce it. Most of the time, if there are even numbers, you can divide by an even number. 2, 4, 6, sometimes 8. So now an even higher. So 36 divided by 2, that's 18. And 10 divided by 2, that's 5. So 18/5 can be your answer as an improper fraction. But if we want a proper fraction, I know for sure I can do division without the decimal. So how many groups of 5 can get into 18? That'll be 3. Because if I do 4, that's going to be 20. That's more than 18. So 3 times 5, that gives me 15. And when I subtract 18 minus 15, that gives me 3. So I'm not putting a decimal and a 0 because what I'm doing is I'm moving this improper fraction and turning it into a mixed number. So you have your whole number of 3, and you have your remainder, which is this 3, over the divisor, which is this 5. So 18/5 and 3 3/5, they're equivalent. Okay? They're equivalent. So don't be afraid of the fractions, because the fractions is going to give you your exact number or exact answer, whereas a decimal, majority of the time, will give you an approximate, because we like to do some rounding. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it with these two as our possible answer. I'm going to write the word for word. Okay. All right. And finally, our last one for today. I know you're excited. And if you do like these, you like how I'm breaking things down, and you're just like, you know what, Audrey, I need you in my life because I'm taking college algebra, or my kid is about to go into high school. They start on Monday, and I'm freaking out because I don't know what his math is going to be, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to support. Please reach out. Okay, you can reach me at mathbyaudrey.com. Okay, you can reach me there, or you can just send me a direct message here right from this live. Okay, don't have to send any personal information, just so we can get in touch with each other, and then we'll take it from there. All right, last question for today. Of course, I'm going to make it a doozy. I'm going to make you want to think. I'm going to probably throw everything at you at one time. You're like, no. I'm like, yes. All right, so we have that, we have that. We're going to get an absolute value. We have a negative 18 divided by 3 times 2 minus negative 5. You get an absolute value. And then, we mean, and then, Audrey, and then we're going to put all of this over bracket 3 minus 5 cubed plus 2. I know a lot of people are like, nope, not going to do that. I'm like, no, you are. Because see, here's my thing. Don't let it scare you. Okay, so this is the whole entire problem. You're like, oh, good God. Nope, you're all right. So we have negative 2 raised to the 4th plus the absolute value of negative 18 divided by 3 times 2 minus a negative 5. Divide by or over 3 minus 5 cubed plus 2 squared minus 11. And we're going to go with, please excuse my dear and south, from left to right. Key components. Now, as I said before, don't look at this as one huge problem. Break it down bits by bits, okay? You know, when you have to do laundry and do dusting and vacuum and take care of the pets and cook and this and that, instead of you trying to do all those chores at once, say, okay, which one can I do right now that won't take me the longest? Does it make sense for me to do it now? Because I don't want to have to redo it after I do something else. And you do that. Okay, same thing here. Parenthesis. Inside the parentheses, single number, two numbers. Okay, so we can do exactly what we did above here. We can split it up. We can do the numerator first, go ahead and break that down, and then do the denominator next. We can do that, or we can flip it around. So if I grab this, I want to do the denominator first. Why not? Okay, so first thing inside of this bracket, I have 3 minus 5. So repeating the bracket, 3 minus 5 gives me a -2. It's going to be cubed plus 2 raised to the second minus 11. Okay, so we bring it on down. Okay, now just focus on this. So here, you're going to have -2 to the third power. This is saying, the exponent is saying, hey base, -2, I want you to multiply yourself the -2 3 times. That's what this is saying. So now we have a negative times a negative. That gives me a +4. Bring down the last -2. Then 4 times -2, that means this right here will give me a -8. So we took care of the cube by basically multiplying the base to itself 3 times. So that's taken care of. This is the extended form. We got those first two, multiply them, get the 4, bring down this -2. That's where the -8 comes. Now, bring down this +2. And yes, this is still inside of a bracket. Bring down the -11. Okay. Inside, -8 plus 2. If you owe me $8 and you gave me 2, that means you still owe me 6. And you're going to bring down the -11. So -6 squared, similar to what we were talking about earlier. Even though it's inside of a bracket, it's still the same thing. I'm taking that base of -6 and multiplying to itself 2 times. So negative times a negative gives me a +36. So now we have 36, and we're going to bring down my -11. So 36 minus 11 is what? 25. Okay, so this is your, I'm going to put it over here, your denominator. Okay, so that's what the 25 is. So now we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to focus solely on the numerator. And I got my little thing here. Just so I can keep my pages. I have a feeling that thing's gonna like go flying across the room. Good times. All right, so now we're gonna focus on just the numerator. So we have a -2 to the 4th. Be careful right here. This is when a lot of people will say, oh, it's -2 raised to the 4th. That means I'm multiplying -2 to itself 4 times. No, there is no parenthesis around it. if there was a parenthesis around it, just like we did problem, yeah, just like how we did here for the -2 to the third power, there's a parenthesis. That means you're multiplying that base of -2. Whereas this time, it doesn't have a parenthesis. Okay, so that means we have a negative, right? Then we have that base of 2 being multiplied to itself 4 times. That's what this is saying. So you have your 2 times 2, which gives you 4. So you can group that. That's a 4, and that's a 4. That's 4 times 4 gives me 16, and then we tack on the negative at the end. So it's going to actually be a negative 16. Okay. Bring down your plus sign. Now, what do we got going on inside this absolute value? So I know for a fact people did 3 times 2. No. Okay. No. We have to do this -18 divided by 3 first. Because remember, multiplication or division from left to right, whatever comes first when you look from left to right, that's what you combine. So -18 divided by 3, so we put my absolute value down. So that gives us a -6, okay, times the 2 minus a -5. When you minus a negative, it turns positive. So now, still, this is the absolute value. Gotta make that a little bit longer. So still looking inside the absolute value, I'm going to bring down my -16. Okay, still have our absolute value. -6 times 2, that gives me -12, plus 5. So now we have -16 plus -12 plus 5. If you owe me $12 and you gave me 5, that we're looking at an absolute value of -7. But just like we mentioned earlier, the absolute value of a negative number is always going to give you a positive. Okay. So now we got -16 plus 7. That gives us a -9. And that's your numerator. Okay. So now you're probably saying, well, wait, Audrey, that's not giving us a whole number. And that's fine. Okay. So that means my numerator is a -9. My denominator is a 25. So if I want to reduce this, it has to be the same number. Does 9 and 25 show up in the same multiplication table? No, they don't. They're both odds. This shows up in the ones, the 3 times table, and the 9s. This shows up in the 1s and the 5s times table and 25. So the only thing they have in common is 1, right? So if I divide anything by 1, it's just going to give me my original answer. So this is your final answer. I know. You're like, whoo, I'm exhausted. But this is what I do. And this is what you should do, especially when they put it in a fraction form like this. Tackle one concept at a time. Okay. Look at your numerator, solve that bad boy right here. Look at your denominator. I should say simplify instead of solve. Simplify that bad boy over here. And once you get them, put it back together and see if they need to be reduced. Okay, and it has to be reduced by the same number. Just like what we did here, For the previous one, we had 36 for the numerator, 10 for the denominator. We reduced it by a common factor, which was 2's, so we can get our 18/5, which is an improper fraction. So I know a lot of people like to change it to mixed numbers. But my suggestion, if you're looking at a standard assessment, if you notice that you have the imperfect fraction, an improper fraction, that's your answer. Okay. If they give you decimals, obviously do the division by adding your decimal point and your zeros. Okay. So that's order of operation. Okay. Understanding the whole concept. So sorry, I'm flipping all over here. Okay. Understanding that whole concept of please excuse my dear Aunt Sally and breaking these concepts down. So I know before we started this lesson, I felt pretty good. Okay. During the lesson, how I felt really good because it felt like everyone's getting it. And now after the lesson, I still feel confident. Now, if you felt like straight reds across, not just because you're like, there's math on something that I like to see to have fun, besides that, but if you understand the concept and it kind of grows, you can say something. Go ahead, put a message, put a comment. Okay. But again, and if you like my notebook, I actually designed this notebook. Okay, this is my ultimate math notebook, which I have usually for Algebra 1 students. This one in particular is for my Algebra 2 students. The reason why, the concepts are still the same. You know, you have your formulas over here. If you wanted to add the steps onto the side, you can, so you can get all your stuff at a quick glance. All right, so I like to use the dots. The reason why I like to use the dots, let me show you for another example. Maybe, maybe not. Sorry, I've got like all kinds of stuff. Like I can even take like stuff from my book actually. And you can tape it in and you can do the problems here. So if you notice that people are like, I got to do all this stuff. But the one thing that really gets me is when we're doing when we're doing graphing. And I'm trying to find where my graphing stuff is. Oh, here we are. Okay, so this one was with Pythagorean's theorem. And I just like broke it on down. So it helps me with my graph. It makes my graph so much neater. And then I can just write in what I need to. So the dots are not so overcoming. Okay. But then also, if some people like the traditional graphs, you got the traditional graphs on the other side. Okay. Just as long as you got that space to do it. Now, the reason why this is different, and you probably just saw it like, ooh, I have resource pages. One of them is my factor chart. Okay, so when you're trying to break down your square roots and your cube roots, or you're trying to find factors so you can do your factoring component, I have from not only from 1 to 100, mine goes all the way to 200, okay, at the very bottom. So having the factor charts, having my reminders about the cubes and the squares, then also having your complex numbers. This is why I put it with my Algebra 2 stuff. Okay, we have the conversion charts, also fractions. A lot of kids and also adults need some reminders of how to add, subtract, and multiply fractions. Then you have word problems, okay? These are the most popular words and what operation it's connected with. So we have adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, equals, and inequalities. This one gets screwed up with a lot of people. Is more than is an inequality. More than is addition. Is more than is an inequality. Less than is subtraction. Okay, that's the difference. Just by those little bits of tweaks, you probably got like 2 or 3 questions correct just by knowing what those little words meant. Okay, so same with the integers, and a lot of stuff you'll see repeated because we saw this in the other book. Okay, with my ASVAB, I try to repeat some stuff, arithmetic reasoning, logarithm and exponentials. You're going to see that later on. then acceleration is always there. And then we get to the unit circle. You're going to love that. Okay, the conic sections. So then it really goes deeper into the formulas that you will need. Okay, and also Pascal's triangle. So this is what I do. So if anything, I try to keep these concepts nice and light, really trying to build up, as I was saying earlier, with the foundations. Okay, so we can get these foundations done. Because if you understand and know your multiplication extremely well, you can do fractions, decimals, and percents. But by getting your foundational skills strong enough, then you can be strong with the strength of the trunk of your tree in order to have algebra. And then once you get to algebra, you can do any branch of mathematics there is known to me. Okay? I'm telling you, algebra is the heart and soul of most standardized or above advanced math. And a lot of teachers will all say that it's not because my kids are in calculus that's killing them. It's because their algebra is not that strong. So when we build up these foundations, I'm not saying that, oh, your roots are not that strong and you'll never be good at algebra. That's not what I'm saying. We can build up our roots. We can get ourselves with the knowledge and the breakdown so you can build up your confidence and be able to produce fruit that you can basically pass on from person to person. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and attention on a lovely Saturday. I'm probably going to be on here next Saturday. I was just going to check to see what we got skills wise. If you're watching the replay, make sure you guys hit that hashtag replay. All right. And if you have questions as you're watching the videos, please go ahead and ask. All right. I do online tutoring. I have resources. I do a lot for GED, ASVAB, Accuplacer, TEAS test, HESI test, but I also basically tutor students from 7th grade up to adult learners at any age. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you guys next week. But if anything, go ahead and follow me. I'm always live on TikTok each and every day. So at 8 a.m., but sometimes now that tutoring is back in full swing, I might have to change that time. But you can also follow me there for more information. All right. Take care and have a great day.